When you see money, what do you see? So many people see things that will buy for them, the pleasure that it gives them, the power that it yields. When my children were young, when they saw money, they called it tzedakah. They called it tzedakah, charity, because that's what they knew about money. They knew that a coin, a bill, was taken and put into a pushka, into a charity box. That was their experience. Now they grew up and then they found out it could buy some candy, and afterwards it could buy clothing, and afterwards it could buy a home. But what's ingrained in them when they see money, they see charity. That's a beautiful way to ingrain things. Today's class is in memory of a dear friend. I just found out that she passed away. Doesn't live in Montreal any longer. Irene Bloomstone, Chaya Bas Avram, a very special neshama who had that kind of attitude about money. It was just a tool to do good. That's how she saw it. That's how she lived. And that's how she devoted her life. May her neshama go from strength to strength and be a good to better for her family. So with that notion, let us conclude the 21st chapter where we're speaking about tzedakah. In the beginning of this letter, the Alter Rebbe said, don't give charity merely in one lump sum. Don't do it in one lump sum. The Alter Rebbe was collecting funds for those Jews that were destitute, living in the Holy Land, that at the time was under the Ottoman Empire's control. And people would would take upon themselves the responsibility of giving a certain amount a year. And the collector would come maybe once a year to collect, and they would give it in one shot. Alter Rebbe says, don't do it that way. Put aside the money every month, every week, even better, because that shows alacrity, that shows swiftness. And we want to do a mitzvah, we want to do it swiftly. As all mitzvahs need to be done swiftly, because that shows that you are doing the will of God with great joy, as we learn out from Abraham. Now the Alter Rebbe gives us two more important reasons of why the charity that one gives, even though the total amount will be the same, but it shouldn't be done just in one lump sum, but rather in a multitude of giving. Showing swiftness, alacrity, as we just mentioned, but then there's the act of charity that we do in a numerous amount of times. When we do it in a numerous amount of time, what's happening? It happens with the frequency. So the Rambam, Maimonides, writes that everything is judged by the multitude of action. As when we take action many times, that's how things are judged. Think about it. If you give charity once, $1,000, it's amazing. But if you break up that charity of $1,000 and you give it every day, then the multitude of action embeds the act of giving once, twice, 3 times, 365 times rather than one time. And as Maimonides explains, that brings a refinement to the soul. Because the actions that we take for good bring a refinement to the soul. So if we're giving charitably one time, it's one action, even though the amount is 1,000 times more, or whatever amount times more, right? Is 365 times more. Doesn't matter. It's still one action. How will it be embedded in your soul? How will that refine you? But if you do it in the multitude of actions, it'll bring a refinement as a result. So better to do that. And that's what happened with our children. They saw day in, day out, not just once a day, sometimes several times a day, of taking money and putting into a pushka. The fact that they saw it, and not only they saw it, interesting to note, when the Rebbe gave out dollars on Sundays, he would give out dollars to people to encourage them to give that dollar or to exchange that dollar and give a different dollar, keeping the Rebbe's dollar, of course, and giving another dollar and adding to it to tzedakah. He gave it in order to inspire people to give more tzedakah, charity. And he did it many times on a Sunday. Thousands of people, thousands of dollars that were given out. So the fact that our children saw repeatedly that money was being put into a pushka, what they experienced is, in the multitude, is that's what money is, for charity. Not to buy me things. Does it do that? Of course. Is that its purpose? Ultimately, that's not a mitzvah. Charity is a mitzvah. So that's its purpose. So it became embedded in them as a result. So that's the simple kind of Talmudic understanding based on Maimonides' teachings. Now for a more mystical understanding of this idea. Every time we give charity, tzedakah, we elicit and draw down supernal life from the source of life, from God, in every act. And we bring down life, and in particular, where does the life first come down to? The land of life down here, right? The land of life down here, which is reflecting the land of life up there. The land of life over there is Malchus, the lowest of the 10 attributes, Malchus of Atzilus, and that's the Shekhinah, the divine presence. So the divine presence that animates everything, brings life to everything. From there, as the verse says, Ata mechayis kulam, you animate them all. You, in Hebrew, is Ata. Ata is the letters Aleph, Taf, Hey. Aleph, the first letter, Taf, the last letter. Malchus is royalty, kingship. God gives life through his word. As a king rules with his word, the letter is Aleph through Taf, and the Hey, because there's 5 pronunciations that we use of the to pronounce words. We use our lips, our teeth, our tongue, our palate, and larynx to create the letters. Those 5 organs that verbalize the letters. That brings life. So every time we give tzedakah, we are drawing upon that. And through that Shekhinah, the divine presence of God, that to bring that presence and give that vitality down here. And that divine presence is, the Shekhinah, is also called the Sukkah of David that has fallen. Sukkah means, well, coming to the holiday of Sukkah. Sukkah also is the edifice, the building of David, meaning the Holy Temple, that's fallen to the dust. And that's the idea of the divine presence has gone into exile. So the Shekhinah, Malchus Vatzilus, gone into exile, went with us, and we're there. And how do we now revive the Shekhinah in exile? Is by being charitable. When we give in this to the one who's humbled, meaning one who doesn't have. We arouse from above, Malchus of Atzilus, that also has nothing of its own, because the king has nothing of his own. He's only a receptacle of the divine, only there in the service of the divine, a true monarch, a true king, which is the idea of charity, giving to those that don't have. Well, Malchus doesn't have its own. It's the 10th of the divine attributes it receives from the 9 previous ones. It's like the moon that doesn't have its own light. It receives its light. So Malchus receives its light, its energy, to animate, to give life. And that's what we do. We parallel that when we animate and give life to another. And therefore we draw down that level of divinity, Malchus, the Shekhinah, the divine presence. We revive it. Right? That Shekhinah that's in exile, that is humbled. And we activate it. How? Because we acted in that way of giving to someone who doesn't have. And this is especially true when you're giving to the inhabitants of the actual land of life in the physical sense, which is the land of Israel, the Holy Land. Land of life above is Malchus of Atzilus, the Shekhinah, the divine presence. That Shekhinah has gone into exile. We revive it by giving to those who don't have, and especially when we give in the land of Israel, because it is the reflection of the Shekhinah, of divine presence, the land of life above. And as the Alter Rebbe says, this will suffice for those who understand, and whoever's enlightened with this wondrous matter. Now we can understand this idea that Maimonides says that we're judged in according to the multitude of actions in a deeper way. In other words, the multitude of actions that we elicit in every action, the source of life, the fountain of life, and we do it repeatedly, bringing the fountain of life. And what is the fountain of life? Well, how does life come about? Life comes about, right, through a union. Male and female brings about life. So likewise, Kuchabrichu Shchinte, we, through the act of being charitable, create a union between the masculine part of the divine, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the 6 divine emotions, and the Shekhinah, as we said, the Shekhinah, divine presence, is Malchus of Atzilus, has nothing of its own, right? Receives its light. That's the feminine quality. And every time we give charity, so we create that union. And when we do it repeatedly, we're repeatedly creating that union above. That's the multitude of action that we spoke about. And as the Rambam writes, that brings about a refinement. Right? That brings about a refinement. Yes, that brings about a refinement, because the light of God, now we have elicited from above through the union of male and female parts of the divine, bringing a new light into this world, into our soul, meaning refining our soul as a result, which is amazing. And that's why our sages say that charity is so great that it brings about redemption. Because it's bringing our redemption personally. Right? It's raising the Shekhinah itself, the divine presence of God, that has fallen to the dust. And gradually, stage after stage, after each act of giving and being charitable, each one, it's bringing up, until Yavai Shilai, until Mashiach comes. When then the Shekhinah, the Divine Presence, will reinstate it in its pristine state. Now, every time we give charity in the multitude of action, we reinstate the Shekhinah more and more to its rightful place. Very powerful. Very powerful. Any questions, any thoughts? Joseph, what specific mitzvah could someone perform as a recipient of charity? To receive charity, well, you're just enabling someone to do the mitzvah, right? Should we look to do that? To enable someone to? No. Maybe inspire someone to give. It's even greater the person who inspires another to give than even the giver themselves. But we shouldn't look to be the recipient of charity unless we need it. Now that's talking about charity, meaning literally monies, so you could live. But then we're all a recipient. We all receive. Right now, many of you are receiving wisdom, Torah knowledge, right? When you don't have it, or you might have it but you're lacking, your cup isn't full, so you're a recipient to receive more wisdom from the Alter Rebbe's teachings. Yes, in that way, we're all recipients. Must charities be in a monetary form only? No. There's charitable with your time, there's charitable with your being, being acts of loving kindness, of doing a favor for someone, right? Materially, spiritually. It's giving your time to help someone in, spiritually, giving of your body that, someone's doing a move and you're helping them to move, or whatever the case may be. But there's something very special about being charitable with your money. Yep, but we need to do both. Absolutely. Okay, amazing. Alice, for those who cannot give, what are their alternatives? Everybody can give. The question is just how much. And that giving you can break down. If you can only give a quarter a day, $1 a day, so do it. Do it. It brings refinement, brings, as we explained, at a deeper level. It brings a union that brings about a new light and therefore a refinement. If Hashem makes the world with the givers and takers for His parnasa, are we the givers and takers at different times? Yes, good question, Davida. We're all givers and takers. We're all taking from Hashem, right? We don't give ourselves life. We all take it from Hashem. So we're taking from Him. We're taking wisdom from the Alter Rebbe. Okay. Beautiful. All right. Rambam coming up now. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and pleasure to share with you Tanya. In today's class, in the memory of Irene Bloomstone, Chaya Bas Abram, dear friend, beautiful neshama, who bless this world and bless people's lives. May we all be a blessing in people's lives, and may we have a good Shabbos and a Chag Sameach, an amazing holiday of Sukkot. All the best.